You're getting followers and subscribers. So, can you follow and not subscribe?
You can, yeah. Subscribing is the paying one. Hi everyone. How's it going? Just teaching my mom here about Twitch.
Trying to show me the parts.
Quick shout out to all the recent followers. We got some noob, Vanoian, eat well. Maybe that's I eat well. That makes sense. I'm reading off recent followers. Alemja and Renardus the Trickster. Thanks guys. Thanks for following us around. So this is what we've got going on today. Right now it looks like a messy blob. Hold on, let me get all of our Windows stuff working. Okay, there's us, yes. We are here. We exist. Animania, hello. How's it going? Sigrid, Damon, the Magic Penguin. Welcome everyone.
Thank you for waiting so patiently for us, Damon. And Magic Penguin says, hello Earthlings, both flat and round alike.
That's Eric Soto.
Aha. Is that supposed to be a secret?
I don't think so. I mean, now the world knows. He's outed. Animania, thanks for following. So today we are, I had this idea that I've got to make all these maps for the book, for the Sculpting trilogy that I'm co-authoring with Rose Foreman here. And one of the things that is often helpful is visual development. When you do visual development along with just armchair making stuff up, as most writers do, you find that a lot of things that you thought in your brain would just work end up creating contradictions.
Correct.
or maybe you just hadn't thought through something far enough. Correct. So visual development is really helpful for that. And so here's an example. This is going to be, well, right now it's an empty floodplain. But this is going to be a city that Beaumont gets to. It's his first kind of big city. He comes from a tropical island nation, and this is kind of more of a Northwest United States type of, or England, or, you know, coast of France. No, I guess coast of France is, oh, they have north coast. France is pretty big. Doesn't matter. It's Euro, all right? It's Euro/North American. And so it's got a bunch of conifer trees and granite rocks and all this kind of stuff.
And I can test that everything is too tall. We need a pass to the interior of Dystoria.
Right, so we have, I kind of made this bay type area. One of the big distinguishing features of this city is a big kind of fortress, castle, a prestige sort of monument up here. And then most of the city's here because it's a port city, but to make it a useful port city, it needs to have roads that then go other places. And right now it does not have any of those. So we're gonna have to make some roads in here somewhere. So I may just go ahead and do that. I'll just block that in real quick. Once I select the right tool, there we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna carve a nice little
canyon.
Yeah. Oh, can you hand me my sketchbook? I want to show the initial sketches I was doing. So there is my initial kind of top down, and
It's really hard to see.
yeah, well,
Okay.
hopefully it fills up more of their screen than it does for us.
Ah.
Anyway, yeah, that's kind of the starting point. And then from here, just modeling this out three-dimensionally, I think will help with it will allow me to make a lot of different assets with this, as opposed to just a top-down map that I hand draw or something like that. I can do beautiful illustrations. I can well, mostly beautiful illustrations, but also the really valuable thing that it provides is that kind of sanity check that you don't necessarily get if you're just thinking about you know, I'm not articulating well today, but that's okay. We don't all have to have perfect days every day. So ideally, this place has a trade route all up and down. This is, let's see, here's the map of the world. Well, this continent.
So.
Yeah, so Discoria is right here. Ironia is the big island, kind of Englandish size island. Rolakton is a little island off that island that Bomark first comes to. It's mostly abandoned, and then he comes up to here. So this being a big port city for the entire island, and the trade. Let's see, the biggest area. Let's go to this part of the map. So this is Megaloth City, which is the biggest city in the world. And so there's going to be all sorts of trade that happens in this kind of inner sea and, you know, this whole area. So anyway, it's a nexus of sorts for this area.
And we're assuming Discoria is about the size of, say, Madagascar?
I said England, but are they about the same size? I don't know.
Yeah. Someone can look that up for us real quick.
It's the size of a very large island, large enough to be its own country. Although, there's that one nation that is literally, I think, 2 meters above sea level, and it's just a long string of tiny little islands, and they have like 5,000 people on it, and they're their own nation.
Oh, not in the book, you mean in the world?
Yeah, in the real world.
Yes, that exists.
And they're constantly having... Hey, the Alcreon, thanks for following. Yeah, I was just watching a thing about them. I can't remember what it was on, but... Yeah, they have lots of issues with sewage and the water table and ocean levels rising and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, you imagine it's too small to be habitable.
Although there is also an island that has 300 people on it. Gosh, what was I watching where I was learning all this stuff? You know, what was it?
It's an island off the coast of India with the natives that attack the people if they go anywhere close to it.
No, that's not the one I'm talking about.
That has like 300 people on it.
So, like pirates and...
No, there's an island that still has natives. The natives just kill everyone who approaches, and the government that officially, quote-unquote, owns that land has just marked it a no-go zone. You're not allowed to fly over it or visit it or anything.
I thought that was off India.
Yeah, that is off India. But the one I was talking about earlier has 300 people on it, and it's in the... Oh, I was watching a documentary called... I sent you a link to it. I said you should watch it. It's really good. South Pacific. And it's a series from BBC. And they talk about, you know, the geology, the cultures, the animal, plant life, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they didn't say how they said the island was, I'm gonna get this wrong, but it's pretty much a square mile. And 300 people live on it. They said it's the most densely packed place of humans in the world. You know, as far as
compared to Singapore?
yeah, as far as landmass per person, you know, how many heads live on that amount of area? And yeah, I like there's no way they get rainfall and then have a river. So it's like, how do they get fresh water? And there's a natural spring there. And I wonder, how does that natural spring get fed? Because as far as I know, spring needs an aquifer, it needs a water table, and I was not able to figure that part out. So, if anyone knows, let me know.
It sits atop a watertight, huge cave of water.
Yeah.
Cistern.
It's so small though. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that. Now you're making that canyon, but you have the waterfall over there. What made the canyon?
That's a great question.
We have the Grand Canyon, which was from the rivers coming from the springs in Yellowstone. We have the Columbia River Gorge, which was formed by the melting of an ice dam, and then the lake that covered all of Montana and Idaho and the Dakotas suddenly emptied out all at once and made the Columbia River Gorge, you know, as it shoved boulders down across the countryside and gouged things out and deposited rocks. We lived on a ridge of rocks that were deposited by that particular flood. Well, there we go. Look at that.
So Damon just provided us with this link that's got
thank you.
Largest islands. So here's Madagascar. Where's England? Oh wow, Madagascar is quite a bit bigger, isn't it? Yeah. Looks like about 3 times more land area. But yeah, Ironia looks maybe closer to Madagascar in size. Interesting. Thanks, Damon. Let's see. Van Morta says the fabulous Morta has arrived. You may now act normal. Oh, finally. Whew. You can act normal. It's about time. Damon says islands are mountains with a teeny bit above sea level. It's quite easy to have potable water below ground on what looks like small islands. I understand. What I'm not understanding is how it stays fed unless it rains there a lot. Because it's got to give enough water for 300 people a day.
Well, it's in the kind of place that sometimes rains once a day. I don't know if that's true for that particular spot.
Yeah, I need to look that up. No, it's really bothering me. Let's see. So,
and Damon says that I'm referring to the Missoula flood, and that is exactly so.
Anuta, that's the one. Okay. It's part of the Solomon Islands, the smallest permanently inhabited Polynesian island.
Small volcanic. Okay, there you go. So you've got all this underneath it, and then just the point above ground or sea level.
Oh, look at that! It's 0.4 square kilometers. So, what is that, like a football field?
Something like.
Oh, one of the highest population densities in the world, perhaps equaling that of Bangladesh. Okay, I misspoke. I thought for sure they said the most. Yeah, but again...
But we didn't go down to what is their economic base.
They fish.
I guess.
Oh. Right. So canyons, yes. Canyons don't just come out of nowhere. So there's several canyon making mechanisms. There's water flowing through it is probably the most common. There are rift valleys where the continents are
falling apart.
Yeah, are
yes.
falling apart. Probably not what this is. If it was a rift, like the ones that, so my understanding is the ones that are are the freshest and most easily to be observed are the ones in Eastern Africa.
Yeah,
apart
Lake
there.
Tanganyika is part of that.
And that has all sorts of other, I don't want to say baggage, but considerations you have to take into account if you're going to say that this is a rift. And I don't know enough off the top of my head to be like, yes, let's just make this a rift right now.
So this does remind me of the Columbia River Gorge.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you're going along it, you will see waterfalls coming from an entirely different direction than came from the flood from Montana, which obviously is not flooding anymore, but it's left behind a lot of geological features. So I'm just trying to think of a way to make something that steep-sided.
It doesn't, I mean, so I could push these mountains down if I wanted to, but I
think you want
to. I like steep, cliffy mountains.
Well, steep is certainly more dramatic.
Yeah, I was just watching a thing about U.S. national parks, and they were talking about Yosemite, and so I've been seeing lots of pictures of Yosemite, and that's what I want this to look like. So one thing this could be is literally a river. So let me pull up this. This could be the confluence of two rivers, and then there could just be a path, a trade route that goes along the.
Yeah. And its watershed probably has some sort of mountain. There's the land over here, and then there's the land over there,
yeah.
And they sort of feed into the bay.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when we were standing on a cliff on Mount Bryce Canyon, and there was a little sign on the fence that said, besides don't jump, it said that the water that fell on that side of the fence flowed into the Colorado River, and the water that fell on our side of the fence flowed into the Pacific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, watersheds are interesting.
And the thing about dysphoria, as we're thinking about city building, is that most cities are on a river.
Yeah.
At least if you live in a time where you don't have cars. Cars let you make a city in the middle of a plain, and that's fine.
Yeah, like Sin City, that I can't think of Las Vegas. Jeez. Las Vegas doesn't exist before cars, right? At least not in a meaningful way as a large metropolis.
So you have a source for irrigation for crops. You have a source for transportation. When you can't have internal combustion engines, the water is going to be your main way of transporting in any sort of affordable way.
Yeah.
If you have to use animals, you have to feed them. You have to build the wagons, maintain the wagons, and for rivers you have to build boats and maintain boats. But the energy cost to move things on water is so much less.
Mm-hmm. So if there was a something is going crazy here. Hold on. There we go. If this is a trade nexus, the route in and out needs to be fairly good. Hey, thanks, Van Morta. Fear the watersheds. Okay, I'll fear them appropriately. 45 bits worth of fear. Let's see. Damon says this island would be comparable to Kauai. Why do you say that? What about this island makes it Kauai-like? So imagining road. So this city is kind of at the northern tip. Let's look at this again.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm objecting to the steepness of those cliffs. He's talking about these steep cliffs in Hawaii. And those are volcanic. If you've got uplift mountains, then they generally aren't that steep. If you've got an island with cliffs still that steep, we're looking at a lot of volcanism, and I was not seeing the island as volcanic.
Okay, well, so Yosemite has all those epic mountains, not from volcanoes per se, but from glacial action.
No, it's volcanic.
Previously volcanic, but not recently.
Okay, I'm confusing Yosemite with Yellowstone.
Oh, yes, Yosemite. So I'm looking at things like...
Okay, David says, it is a toll shape, therefore volcanic in origin. The bay would be the dead caldera. It could be canyon heavy, like... I don't know how to pronounce that Hawaiian island.
Kauai?
Really? I think it'd be Kauai.
Yeah, whatever. However you want to say it. Yeah, so this is what I was hoping to have
Convey
be their
something like,
backdrop, you
okay.
know, big beautiful waterfall.
There's the waterfall.
Yeah.
Oh, I hiked by that waterfall.
Yeah. So in the northwest we have a lot of volcanic activity going all up and down the Cascade Range.
Right, the Ring of Fire.
There are certainly cliffs like this on the drive to Vancouver, BC. So I'm not thinking a Hawaii volcano, but Pacific Northwest volcano. So big picture wise, we can mess with that as much as we want later. We can play with the size of the mountains and stuff. One of the main things that I wanted to hash out with you while you're here,
yes,
is this is just way too big a river. Here's a person. Dink. There they are. Hi, little person. Okay, just so we have a sense of scale. And that person may grow or shrink depending on decisions we make here. Just want this river to not be a massive, Thames River or something like that.
Yeah, one of the reasons that European descendants don't know much about the large African kingdoms is because Africa has so few navigable rivers where you can navigate. In Egypt, obviously, you've got a huge civilization there that everybody knows about. And you could travel on it and have your trade and have food brought in, ferry soldiers up and down. But those don't exist in the center of Africa. And so people couldn't travel in, and most of the travel was done inland by walking.
Yeah.
And camels, cattle.
Now, the cattle were only Sahara and north. They didn't get camels further or south of the Sahara.
Right, yeah,
right?
I was thinking specifically of the Timbuktu, the empire that Timbuktu was the capital of.
Yeah.
And the question Damon, Jared Diamond was asking in his book about guns, germs, and steel was, why wasn't there huge amounts of exploration done by Africans in Africa? And the reason was because travel was just so difficult. What with some of the valleys containing so much disease that it kills everybody who tries to go through and sickens everybody who does live there, to no navigable rivers, so you're slashing your way through forests and clambering over mountains. And so that's why so many of the different people groups in Africa were so isolated from each other and Europe. So I want that river to have low enough banks that there could be docks on them.
Mm-hmm. And not be a bunch of cascading massive waterfalls.
Right. Because the more portages you have, the less likely you are to take that route.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, so just a technical mumbo jumbo. This mesh is low density, and I'm making it higher density. I'm making it higher density with this tool, so that when I put the little, when I mark where I want the roads, they will draw smoothly and not be big chunks. So I'll just show you an example.
Okay.
If I mark where I want a road, not like that.
Not like that?
Here we go. Okay. So, I say I want a road. Well, they'd be much smaller than that, given the size of our people. So I want a road like this.
Okay.
You can see the difference in resolution. Here it's very chunky, and here it's smoother because I added all those faces.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then I just cut out the mountains here so that I can just focus on this.
Hawaii rhymes with Hawaii.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. Of course, I'm sure none of us are pronouncing Hawaii correctly either, so, you know.
Damon said it would depend on if there's more land beyond the image. Yes, we are expecting more land beyond the image.
Yeah, this is just
he's not drawing that right now.
Just enough for the illustration. Okay, so the topology, I had it a lot steeper, and I flattened it out quite a bit, so the streets wouldn't be, you know, like in downtown Seattle. But
in the story, they are going uphill some.
Yeah.
But
okay, so we've got the docks here. Actually, let me add this real quick. Okay, we've got a little boat here. So here's docks, and let's put a little warehouse in here as well.
they will be as close to the waterfront as possible, because you want to transport, if you're going to put it from one vehicle into another and store it someplace in between time, you want to take it as short a distance as possible and as level a distance as possible.
Yeah.
The energy cost of dragging goods up a cliff and then later taking them back down the cliff are so high as to be prohibitive.
That's a good point. So if this river is kind of their major outlet for, you know, so stuff gets dropped off at the port and then ends up on this river or on this road, or on this road out of town,
Okay.
then we would want to make sure that this whole section here is would be landscaped to the point where it's easy to access all those things. Oh, that reminds me also of a bridge. So imagine, oh, what did I do? Made everything go away.
Van Mortis says to pronounce Hawaii, pronounce the W as a V. So Hawaii.
Well,
I
almost sure
think
that's wrong.
so.
Huh. All right. I've gone from mildly bemused to now semi-concerned.
Uh-oh.
Why?
What just happened?
Well, my entire continent just disappeared.
Yes, it did.
And usually that's because I have, okay, let's unmask. Huh.
Uh-oh.
Okay,
Control
well,
Z, Control Z.
yeah, let's see how many Control Z's, if those will get us there.
Okay.
There we go. Why that happened, I do not know. Okay. Well, I was wanting to put a bridge here because it seems pretty natural to me that we're going to want to be crossing over. The mouth of this river. I imagine there's going to be a big road that.
And I
goes on
imagine
side of river.
the bridge is going to arch quite a bit if you want ships to go in and out.
I don't think the do we want boats actually traveling up and down this river from the ocean? How common was that to have ocean-going vessels going up a big river? I guess it's not uncommon.
Oh, okay, you're right. The big cargo ships would put their cargo in littler ships to go up littler rivers or rafts.
Yeah. Cause yeah, if the bridge is tall enough to let sailing ships through, then we're talking about you're gonna have to gain a lot of elevation to get to this road. Whereas if it's short, and we're assuming that they're, you know, these big ocean-going vessels are unloading their cargo onto either caravans that travel by road or smaller boats that travel by river. Well, we'll leave it there for it's easy to change later.
Or, if you wanted, I suppose you could make that bridge almost a barricade to protect the inland areas.
Yeah.
And the way they get the cargo to the smaller ships is to take a road around. Since they have steel, iron, they could have an iron girder bridge.
Yeah, and they could have a drawbridge too, right?
And there's a lot more plasticity to iron girders. You know, you can configure them a number of ways.
I'm imagining a boardwalk style, just docks and piers all the way up and down.
Impacts of hundreds or more, they are close. chapters. No need to
Okay, let's just say, take for granted that we've got, we're gonna have a road going up here, so I'm just gonna start marking off where I think roads, where buildings would not be. Let's just, I'm gonna be masking where buildings would
Well,
not be.
not necessarily. I mean, look at London Bridge. That was a place where you had storage, you had shops, you had houses, as well as a way to get over the Thames and a way to get under a bridge.
It makes sense to me to have a main thoroughfare that would go from the docks up. So I'm imagining, you know, if you just kind of break it up naturally, you're gonna have a chunk of city here, a chunk of city here, you know, chunk here. How those districts are arranged, I don't know how. Well, what are your thoughts on that? How would those evolve and or be planned, as far as commercial districts, housing? I mean, most medieval cities it was the same.
Housing, if you're talking about warehouse districts, those obviously are on the water first.
Yeah.
Generally, the wealthier people live a little bit upland, so they're less likely to be flooded, and they could look down on everybody.
And they don't get as much fish smell.
and to get away from the smells and stuff. You would have the poor houses and the houses of the people who work on the docks, probably almost directly behind the warehouses.
Okay.
And then further inland, you've got the farms and farmhouses and whatnot.
And then there's also the curious thing about road layout. So usually those evolve from, there's desire lines, desire paths that have been, you know, when a place is first settled and there's very few people,
Right.
they just kind of go straight from A to B.
They go straight to A to B unless there's a big elevation, and then they take the levelest way.
Yeah.
Again, because of the energy cost of going up a hill.
So, boy, I can mask. There we go. So I'm just going to make some initial gestures and see where it goes.
But most of your
Yep.
your very smelly industries want to be on water as well.
All right, so your
So they
tanneries
can,
and
you know, dump things in the water.
that'd be really fun to have, like a town. There's another word for town square that doesn't have the word square in it, and I was thinking it'd be fun.
Plaza,
Yeah, sure. Plaza.
center.
Yeah. That would be up here.
It's a little high, but okay.
Yeah, that's what makes it cool. And then it's got a bridge that goes over the waterfall there. You've got fancy rich people housing up here, maybe radiating out a bit. You're always going to have some kind of a road or path that follows the sides of a river. That's almost universal. Another little plaza there. And I'm obviously going to have to, you know, play with the terrain to make it not all not all swoopy.
That there's a waterfall where you're not looking at right now. It is really handy because that allows you to build aqueducts. And when you have aqueducts, then you get to have running water in the city.
Right. You're usually going to get cross lanes, certain distance apart, just because you're not. you can only pack so many houses side by side before you need to get between them. So I was thinking on these kind of
You
top-
could have those would be more isolated outposts. Could be some farming up there. Could be forestry up there. Silviculture.
Mhm.
The farming of trees.
Yeah, I was thinking this area over here would be a good place to do some fields, farms and stuff. The only thing I'm curious about is where, when people are planting crops, the soil is an important thing. The prevailing weather, is this
Yeah.
is this
Well,
causing a
the
rain
soil
shadow?
will be good
or-
here because it's a delta. So the waterfall and rivers have been bringing in and depositing a fine silt and the mineral content from inland, and so the soil should be pretty good.
Yeah. And because this is on the coast, in general, unless the winds come from the other side of the island, you're probably not in a rain shadow. I assume it's probably pretty rainy in this area. Alcreon, yeah, that last track was pretty epic. I'm glad no duels broke out.
Huh. The Lacrian says Hawaii is how the natives do pronounce it. Okay then.
Huh.
I'll defer to them.
Sounds like how a vampire would say it to me, but
Only if they go up, up,
yeah.
up. That's how it's going.
Alright, so
Oh, I thought of a reason why having the farms right there at the base of the cliffs might not work so well. Because north is this way. So the southern
let's
sun,
get this north.
that would really shade that,
So north is
is that
this-
way.
Okay, yeah.
So you're talking about a cliff. If you keep it that high, it would cast a long shadow.
Well, the sun's coming up from here, right? Traveling over this way, or wait. Which way does the sun come from? Rises in the
Rises
west.
in the east, sets in the west.
I hate east-west. I hate left-right too. Like if you tell me move to your left, I will instantly go to my right, like inevitably. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so yes, during the morning this would be in shadow if this cliff stayed as high as it is right now, which it does need to. So does that mean farms wouldn't?
Well, crops in general require as much sunlight as can be obtained.
Yeah, which means you would want it like right in the middle where the city is. So that's not going to work. I mean, I don't assume that the city is self-sustaining on its own crops, but it would probably need something. Also put a lot of crops up here.
You could, and that's where you would desperately need aqueducts or else crops that don't mind surviving only on rainfall.
Yeah. But yeah, you could easily pull some water along an aqueduct up here, feed it down into there, feed it into there. So, the outskirts of town, in general, good places to put fields. Okay, so warehouse district in general, you're going to want a lot of little roads that come off of that feed into, you know, there'll be a tannery over here, and
if the ground is too steep at the docks, that you would expect a lot of the docks to be wider and to have warehouses actually on the docks themselves.
yes, which that's what I started doing. The warehouses would be in these chunks here, right?
Okay.
And then beyond that is
Well, from the illustrations I saw, they were inside the ground, and I was thinking, well, yeah, you could sort of dig out areas for probably security reasons, because it's hard to break into a warehouse that's half underground.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Does that seem so steep? It reminds me a lot of Seattle around the docks. Have a lot of that kind of thing going on. So
Okay.
I thought it was interesting. But yeah, so we'd have
African Diva 5 says hi.
that's Michaela.
Ah.
I'm Shayla.
Hello.
Well, here's what I know. The poor people end up living where the bad stuff drains down to.
Yeah. That is the general rule of life. How do crops... I feel like I don't see farms near the coast. Like within eyeshot of the ocean. Is there a reason for that? Or is it just something it's just a West Coast thing that I just haven't seen?
Too hard on them.
Is it saltwater air? Is it something about the ecosystem?
Well, yeah, salt water is a problem, but because the coast is rainier, it's more profitable to grow trees for either lumber or for their fruit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Okay. So we could have groves of fruit trees around these areas.
Damon says wind and salt is a bitch on productive food, and that's true.
Okay.
Scientists have been trying to genetic engineer some grain crops in the hopes that they can make some that are salt tolerant.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard anything about it lately, so I'm assuming that has run into practical difficulties. The hope was that because any place you irrigate and it doesn't have natural rainfall, say Arizona, Colorado, inland California, it ends up building up salt in the soil. And then after a while, you can't farm there at all anymore, which is what happened to a lot of Turkey and Syria and other places that used to have irrigation and high rates of food production, but then the salt grew up high enough that grains could no longer survive.
So one thing actually, let me just bring up real quick. Oh shoot, I don't think I saved it. Let me do a quick search for. Okay, I'm gonna spell this for my 18th variation of the word. Mid-eval. Is that right?
Medieval what?
Close. Let's see. there's a lot of fun generators that will, like, these are this program here. I messed around with it quite a bit. It's super fun. I'll just randomly create, and you can just change all these sliders, and it changes it. I didn't want to use it just because I like being a little more deliberate about my thinking on the thing, but let's see. It's hard to find actual city layouts and not RPG campaign layouts.
Stupid internet.
Yeah. This one looked really interesting. What was it? I swear I saw one that looked almost just like what we were doing. It was River. Oh, is this one? Yeah, it's kind of similar. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is
that
the
again
fantasy
is
one.
the fake one. You wanted actual medieval cities.
Yeah. There's probably a better word than layout. What is the
City plans, city maps.
I typed in some magical combination of words.
History of urban planning.
Ah. Here we go. Let's visit that site.
We haven't talked about, besides the warehouses and inns, about will there, oh yes we did, because you were saying the castle would be the tallest and the biggest entity.
Yeah.
In medieval times, the cathedral was the centerpiece of the town. It was in the center, it was the tallest, the biggest, the best built.
Yeah.
Because that's what was important to them. You go into American cities in the 50s, and the biggest, tallest buildings are insurance buildings. In Seattle, or at least, Bellevue, the biggest, tallest buildings seem to be owned by Microsoft.
Yeah. This is really interesting. A 1939 model envisions Berlin transformed into the Wetterputzischen Germania, or the World Cup. This reminds me of Man in the High Castle. They have Germans won World War II, and their capital is just this, giant imperial. And I think it looks a lot like this. They're probably inspired by this.
Right. Places that consider their military to be so very, very important will usually have some grand promenade place.
Yeah.
You go to North Korea, you go to the center of Moscow, you go to lots of places, and you will find a road that is several city blocks wide, and that's to accommodate marching soldiers and tanks that you have once a year march through town to impress anybody who thinks they might want to invade your place.
Yeah.
And they want them to see, no, you can't, because we have this impressive army.
My former art director at work used to work for the government in Romania for the president/dictator, and he had all these amazing stories about how they would destroy entire parts of the town, put down fresh asphalt, brick up half the factory with all the broken down garbage, and plant, tear out trees from the countryside and plant them, and they'd get all the people to line up on the streets, and they would do this every single year. They would destroy all the bathrooms in the arena and make it one giant, gorgeous, bathroom. And then the guy would come through. I
can't even imagine. They would line up
the people along the sides of the streets and plan the route in a circuitous way through town, so that when it goes around a corner, all the people would run over to the other parts to make it look like there's just so many people, all the adoring fans. But yeah, so his job was for, I can't remember how many years. It was basically painting the roses red. It was just,
Yes, yeah.
And then after they left town, they would open up, all the stuff that they built, slipshod as fast as they could, just kind of crumbles away. They tear down the beautiful bathroom and put up the normal stalls. And
I had read of people going to the fancy department store that they were shown in North Korea, and as they're standing there listening to the glories of their president, they noticed that they kept seeing the same people going up and down the escalator.
Yeah. Okay, so here's our major trade.
Now again, because of energy cost, the roads are going to be no wider than will accommodate whatever vehicular traffic or animal traffic you will have.
Yeah.
Only horses could ride through this, or in our case, muleys and goatishes. It'll just be, almost like an alley, we would think.
Yeah.
When I was in Pennsylvania last week and we were driving through small towns, I was struck by how differently organized the cities that were built before cars were.
Hi, Paul Player 107. Welcome. Yeah, it's the. I mean, there's that funny story about how the space shuttle and the all the things that NASA has to build to put people into space is restricted by the width of a horse's ass, because the horses were put together and they would walk down the roads, and that's what the railroad tracks are based on, and all the parts that they build for all their big machinery to shoot into space has to go on railroad lines, which means it has to be a certain width.
There you go. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I saw all these houses that had been far away from the road, and now the corner of the house or the front porch was on the road.
Right.
Well, the very edge of the road. And my brother showed me a house that a truck had hit, and it had taken out a chunk of a corner, leaving the second floor still there, but the first floor was truncated.
Mm-hmm. So
because of material cost and energy, again, you might have very narrow roads, then you've got wagon-sized roads, then you've got army marching through town roads. At a lot of places, they deliberately kept their roads small and would not let them go in straight lines for very long, because they wanted to confuse invaders.
Yeah.
Make it hard for invaders to move through the town.
That explains Redmond, Washington.
Yeah, no one will ever take over Redmond, Washington.
Earlier, I was like, you should do a Redmond, Washington one instead of this nice gridlock or a grid one. Like, do a ridiculous Redmond.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on inns? So there's a fantasy trope that every town has, its inn.
Well, it only has an inn if there are travelers.
Yes.
If you have a town that doesn't have travelers who are going from point A to point C, going through your point B, there'd be no point to it.
Just have Airbnb.
And that's why I had that scene of Beaumark. He comes from this island where they have trade with nobody.
Mm-hmm.
No strangers ever come. So there's not that inn thing. So Beaumark, he thinks he's just going to go around and knock on people's doors until he finds someone who's going to be willing to let him spend the night there.
Yeah. So in a trade city such as this, you would imagine merchants are coming in on their boats. They're coming in from the river. They're coming in from the road.
Mm-hmm.
They're mostly going to be, are they going to travel a mile inland?
Right, they're not going to walk for an hour to find a bed.
Right. But on the other hand, they probably don't want to be around the fish smell and the tanneries and all
Well,
the stuff that happens in commercial
Some people
districts.
don't get to choose. I mean, the sailor, the captain might go to someplace nicer, but he won't care where his dock workers spend the
That's a
night.
good distinction. So you're going to have different classes of inn for
Of course.
yeah. Okay. So the ones that Beaumark ends up going into, the one in particular where he meets the rich aristocrat in town.
Okay.
That's not going to be near the docks, I imagine. That's going to be further in.
Maybe, well, not too far, but you're right, far enough that a breeze makes it smell better. Yes, but the guy was slumming, you know.
Okay. Sure. He's hanging out with unscrupulous people. No, he is an unscrupulous person. Well, spoiler alert. He's unscrupulous. What? Did you know my book? Honey, why are you hiding things from me? You're gaslighting me. You're trying to
place
make
for
me
me
think
to
I'm
sit.
insane.
Sure.
I'll take some coffee.
I just want to show this real quick because,
Oh, did you draw a picture of the inn?
well,
Oh, okay.
so what do you? Does this guy look scrupulous or unscrupulous to you?
He looks like he's gonna chop your head off.
Okay, so let's look at these roads and look at the size of this guy. What I should have done, and I didn't do, was make a little scale that shows,
Right,
a
because I'm
meter.
looking at you drawing these lines and I'm thinking those lines are way too big.
Well, I mean, there's a person. Looks like you
Okay.
get 5 or 6 across on this rather wide avenue.
So that would have to be, you'd have to be having wagons passing back and forth fairly regularly
Mhm.
to have a road wide enough to do that.
Yeah. I'm guessing that the more commercially oriented your town is, the wider roads in general are going to be.
Unless it was built, again, I'm traveling through Pennsylvania last week, and we're taking important roads to get from important city to important city, and they're 2 lanes wide going around fields.
Yeah,
Was that pretty?
true. Heather's asking if that was pretty.
Oh, Pennsylvania's beautiful.
Man, if we had money, I would have really wanted to go. That's just like all my favorite people. Because they're all like hanging out. It's like, that'd be so fun.
So I'm imagining if there's an
Okay,
inn
that's great.
here, this is the best inn because it's a couple blocks from the docks.
Old teacher.
It's a quick walk.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, what is that? Maybe 2 football fields max. But it's probably far enough away where you're not smelling everything. It's on the main trade route here.
Yeah, sort of depends on where they put the tannery.
Right. Well, tanneries are always on the river, right? Because they're literally rinsing stuff out in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm imagining tanneries would be around here.
Standing.
Right. So this seems like a good candidate for this is where the inn is that
Okay.
Beaumont goes to. And then there's probably a nicer place or 2 up around here. This I'm thinking of is kind of the main. If there were tourist destinations, this
Okay,
would be
so
the
that's
spot.
where you'd put the sculpture.
Yeah, this is the whale with the arms.
I had a sculpture of the whale with arms that I was calling a carnivore whale that I now want to change the name to Ruthless Whale.
Right. So here you can see the waterfall. You can see the big castle that's going to be up here. You can see the port and the bay. So this I'm imagining is kind of the center.
Now, I was thinking it would be closer to where the inns would be clustered.
Mm-hmm. Well, so you have him exploring the city.
Right.
He's never been to a city before,
Right.
so he's traveling around. It's not.
Okay.
This is not huge. I mean, this is
So-
not going to take you all day. This looks like the size of Disneyland to me. Actually, the layout's kind of similar to Disneyland too. Here's the new Star Wars area. Anyway. So,
Oh, I was thinking there's a couple, like 100,000 people there.
well, I mean, if we wanted it to be that populated,
No.
Yeah, then we need a bigger area.
yeah, which that's totally doable. It's very
But-
easy to spread this out at this point. Or just to take the thing
I mean,
that's there
remember,
and
it's
scale
the
it down.
capital of the island.
Yeah, I mean, how big was London in 1200?
It was larger than the little villages around.
Yes, it was. Let's find out
That was
real quick. shall we?
ugly ducklings.
Population of
Like Moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter.
Hey, yes.
London.
But
So
then in
1600.
college, I finally got to renew it.
here's 38.
It got way better.
Okay.
There was
So
a hiccup with this last one, but
the year. Okay, 1200. We've got 20 to 25,000.
Okay.
when I was 16,
The first census is in 1801, and at that point they're over a
I am
million.
not a pretty person.
Honey, you are a pretty person.
Yeah,
Shane,
I
listen
beg to
to
differ.
him. Listen
Look
to
at
him.
this.
You're not.
What is that? Show that to the stream.
No, you little turd.
Don't make me
Mom.
beat my 19-year-old son live on stream.
Actually, I want them to
Okay,
see this.
Pod Player
That one?
asked, how would the people be, I mean the class, because of wealthy trade in the docks?
It was like 21.
Mom's okay with it. Show it to the stream.
How would the people be what?
That's like.
I think Paul Player
sure.
left out a word.
I just
Restate the
thought-
question, Paul Player. Okay, so sure, let's scale all the buildings and people down even more, and then we'll add more streets. This is the time to do that. So let's go to this person here.
Just take a picture of that. Sounds like I should.
I think I might have a problem in that for whatever reason. When I made this mesh, it was
What
made
mesh?
very itty bitty.
Don't worry, Mom. They're all laughing. Here, say it louder.
World population always dependent upon the amount of food that could be grown. India and China's population doubled when they started growing 2 crops a year,
Yeah.
about 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. Europe always stayed low because it couldn't grow enough food, unless you had a big empire like Rome that could bring the Nile grain.
There are also government policies of buying and storing extra grain
Yep.
for times of famine. That was a big boost to population as
But
well.
overall population just depends on food.
The big boost in Irish population came when the potato was brought over from South America.
Yeah, I can't remember who said this, but someone said that the potato is the
Most disgusting.
no, it's essentially it meant the easy mode of agriculture.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
supposed
it's
to be
just
the
the-
easiest thing
the
in exchange for calories.
Calorie density is so
to grow, yeah.
okay, so let's make this guy tiny.
And it transports well, and it saves well.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make potato chips and french fries.
Oh yeah, potato chips and French fries are the most important.
We'll
You
catch
can
that
also power.
condiment.
You can also power a very sarcastic robot like in Forward.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a poly group out of the roads that I currently have. Group masked. But, okay, so we've got this layout saved. Let's see how itty bitty we can make this stuff. everything. Okay. There we go. Okay. Make you itty bitty.
How cities look depends on what they have for building materials.
Yep, so here we've got a lot of timber and wood, so we've got options. Okay, so if we're imagining these as warehouses, these as boats, this dock, reasonable size. Oops. I did something very wrong with these docks. Oh, look at that. How do I disentangle these?
Unless you have a lot of excess wealth, everything is going to be built as small as you can get away with and as, I want to say, engineered. You don't over-engineer anything that you don't have to.
Yeah, well, the exception is, well,
And unless you've got,
prestige.
if you can bring in resources from the entire country and spend it on your whims, then a king might order some spectacular thing or some particular way that the roads be paved or put. But for regular business, they're not going to do more than they need to.
Yeah. I really shot myself in the foot here by duplicating these bridges on the same, or these docks on the same subtool. Oh, how do I fix this? You know what? We're just going to
So do
leave
they
these
have a
giant
source of tar to coat the logs to bore the docks? Or are they making
Well, that's a great
docks
question.
like jetties? You know, you keep piling in rocks till you have an area you can pave on top.
How do you make tar?
Well, it usually seeps out of the ground.
It's just a natural resource.
If you have oil, yeah, you can have tar.
So I'm assuming in England they had their peat bogs. Would that be where they got their tar?
No, you wouldn't get tar from peat bogs. You get peat. You get.
I thought in general it was just kind of derivatives of.
Yeah, I don't know if they use carpa or arsenate to preserve their logs or not. That's a good question. How did they preserve logs in London in the 1600s? Or was that just something they replaced every 5 years?
I was watching a really interesting video. Let me bring this up. From Shad University.
Oh, would the people be wealthy as they live so close to the main trade area? Generally, places where trade occurs because of the gaining of taxes and the theft of some of the goods by a variety of ways. My husband used to work on the docks. He swept the docks as he was working his way through college. And back before they containerized everything, they would unload boxes out of a ship and put it on a truck or something. Well, so if the cargo was something really desirable, every once in a while there'd be an oops, and then drop, and the box would be damaged, and then that would have to go through an insurance thing. And then the dock worker would take home the TV or the whatever was wonderful in that box.
Yeah, I mean, corruption is going to be an inevitable side effect of value trading hands at any point.
Yeah. So yeah, where there's a lot of trade, in general, people are wealthier. Yes.
Yeah, so it's the capital of the country, it's a trade port, and so it's where, the royalty...
There's money changing hands.
Yeah.
And
So this is a nice, rich city. Let's see. So anyway, I was telling you about this. So this video is about why.
Whitewashing.
Yeah. So.
Which is sort of a gypsum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Protected.
And I think the idea is that this is mostly what they would coat stuff in. Although, so he had another video where he's theorizing. Oh, come on. Go back to this.
Well, that one said, I'll tell you why they're white.
This is interesting where he's talking about wooden castles, and he so he goes through all these different, so he says in England the wood rots really fast. That's why
Yes.
there are no wood castles left anymore, and he's positing that they probably would have whitewashed their wooden castles. They would have I can't remember the specific word for it, but yeah, basically coated it in white.
Lime.
Yeah.
Whitewash is lime.
So that could be a wood castle that's just been limied over. To which I said, I feel like this hypothesis has some testable predictions. I'm assuming we know of at least some sites of previous wood castles and that the amount of rendering material needed could be traceable in the soil around the sites. I'd also love to see a living archaeology experiment building a simple tower with this process. Remember, guys, always read the comments because my comments will be in there. So, anyway, yeah. What were we talking about? We were talking about, well...
Oh, how did they preserve the logs that they used to put the docks on?
Yeah. So, if we are positing that they do have access to tar, where does that tar come from, and what does that mean to the geology around that area? Does tar only exist in areas of volcanism? Does it... I don't know the answer to that.
No, not necessarily. I'm trying to think of places that occurs naturally, like Hollywood, La Brea tar pits.
Yeah.
Well, that is volcanism, a lot of volcanism there. But there's tar pits in Pennsylvania. There's tar pits in Syria. Wherever you had a lot of plants and animals that compost and get pressed into coal and tar and stuff. So, you know what? I haven't studied much geology about oil. I should do that.
So for our purposes, I mean, worst case scenario is, I mean, if we want them to have tar, is they import the tar, which I'm assuming is possible. It doesn't need to come fresh out of the ground, right? It can be barreled or...
Right. You kind of want tar anyway to put on the boards of your ships.
Yeah. Which for seafaring societies who did not have access to tar, what did they use? I want to say that actually rendered fat could be used.
I don't think so.
I think I've heard that. Maybe that's just like an
Maybe
Inuit
someone
thing.
could research that for us and let us know.
Let's see. So if we've got itty bitty people, then these roads can be much
I'm mostly
smaller.
thinking, you know, when I think about civilization, I spend a lot of time thinking about, okay, the weather influences how you build, you know, what size windows you have, how high the windows are, how low the windows are, what type of roofing you use.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot about food, crops. Rome got a lot of its food from Algeria. And, you know, when the grain ships came in and then the city could be fed, believe it or not, I was so shocked. It wasn't like wheat. The grain that came in was the seed of white lupin.
I haven't heard of that. What is lupin?
It's a white flower. It grows wild in the here. They have a central spike with like little pea blossom looking flowers in a cluster up and down the stalk. We have the purple, the bluebonnet in Texas. That's a lupin.
Okay.
So some kind of white lupin produced the grain that they used for their food in Rome. All this time I thought it was like wheat.
Yeah. It's flower seeds, essentially?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm just going to take this little section for now and start throwing some little houses on it. Let's see. Let me do polygroups. Group maps.
On my Google search, some weird ad because you were saying like it looks like crying myrtle. Crying myrtle literally just popped up on
Moaning Myrtle.
Whatever.
Come on, Mom. Get your Harry Potter.
I know. I'm like,
right.
well, I'm.
Speaking of which, I know what Lupin was from Harry Potter.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Okay, come on. I want to select. Nope, don't want to do that at all. Okay, that's good. Get rid of you. Okay, get rid of you. Okay.
Now that you're seeing Josh draw in real time, you're coming to appreciate, I'm sure, the illustrations that will be in the books, that these are not just drawn in 10 minutes.
Oh, that'd be nice. Okay.
Dad, if you're really good at programming, you would do it in 10 minutes.
True. So, oops. Okay, my select. Okay, so this is all selected here, and I want this to be its own polygroup. Group visible. Okay, did that work? I believe so. Okay. And then, so I can click on that, and then I can select that. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. I can mask. Oh my gosh. Zbrush, why are there so many buttons? Okay.
Artigas says, show Zbrush who's boss. He believes in you.
Thank you. So, that's selecting everything. This is, if I click on this, it shows me just the roads. Good. Now, I want to select what is visible. Okay, this is mask. I'm dragging a mask. Good. Now I show the rest. Now my mask shows up. Okay. I don't know why that was so difficult for that one. And then what I want to do is poly paint so I can see my roads without having a mask. Just do it.
You know, so many people think of, when they think of Rome, they think it had to be so primitive. And we don't realize they actually had a very sophisticated banking and accounting system that had records for all across the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew when there was fraud happening in England around, say, the tin mines. And of course, they knew how to check for purity of metals that they were being delivered. They knew about alloys. They had running water. They had the zoning laws. You know, and they had like, because of the narrowness of the streets and because 1 million people lived in Rome during the time of the Caesars, they had laws that the wagons could only move through the city just before the sun came up. And so they'd open up the gates and the wagons would charge in to distribute everything and then get out before they could be caught and fined. And then the streets were open for people to walk around.
Okay, this is he's too big of a person. So I'll delete them. Delete. Okay, that's my itty bitty. Let me rename that. Okay. Proper scale human. Okay. Get rid of this guy. Get rid of this guy. Okay, and then duplicate this guy. Put him up in.
Every city has a reason for being where it is. There's got to be some economic base that then supports, you know, say it's timber. I grew up in a town where the base was lumber and paper, and then you've got the lumber workers. They bring home their income. They got to buy groceries. Okay, so the grocery industry is predicated upon the lumber. They have children, so now we have to have schools, we have to have clothing, we have to have people who teach, we have to have people who sell clothing, who make clothing, and all that again is on the base, which for my town was lumber. For other towns, it could be mining, it could be, as we're positing with Discoria, trade, although they have so many resources, they'd probably be there even if there wasn't trade.
So, let's see, is this itty bitty house about the right size? It could be bigger than that. Let's see. This guy wants to walk in the door. He probably doesn't want to hit his head.
It's fun to see shows shown in England in the 40s and 50s, because you see people come to a front door of a house, they open up the door, and they have to duck to get in.
Okay, so here we have a potential residence or inn or what have you.
Now you're assuming that because of cost issues, density issues, that you can only have a base this size, you can only afford that size lot. But as you go up, you have overhanging ledges, so you can sort of increase your space.
That's another piece that this YouTuber did that I found really interesting. Where he did, yeah. Why do medieval buildings overhang their lower floors? And he basically goes over that. You know, you start with your footprint, and then usually you end up living above your little storefront. And because the way the timbers are laid out, it's easy to do an overhang. And why would you not want that extra space if it's fairly easy to do? And then he talks about how that ends up, shows there, how that ends up sometimes ending up bridging, and you end up with all these places in medieval cities where there's essentially sky bridges over the road where two buildings have come up next to each other, and you're almost walking through tunnels the whole time. So, great channel, you guys. You should check it out.
So anyway, that's why you're choosing to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, don't want to do that. So I was really hoping to find a way that I could just like procedurally paint these buildings on, and I feel like if I was a little more knowledgeable, I sent Zbrush a letter and posted on the forums and was like, come on guys, there's got to be a way that I could just paint this stuff down, because they have all these things I can nano meshes and, well, specifically that one, but I cannot find, nor can I find any of the professional ZBrush artists I know who know this, of a way to make them always up and down. If you're just doing it on a flat plane, it's no problem, but because I'm on a slope, I have to go in and hand place each one of these, and that's going to be problematic.
That's why with the Blender node system, everything is beautiful.
At this scale.
Well, here's what I know. You always find the hardest way to do things.
Yes. It's not that I find it, it's that I can't find the easy, good way to do it. Believe me, I don't have to look. And then also 3 stories is about as big as a dwelling would get in medieval times for a variety of reasons.
Well, you're thinking of the structural materials. When they had stronger structural materials, say as in ancient Rome, they had tenement housing that was often 5-6 stories tall.
Yeah, you're right.
Of course, they fell down from time to
Thinking
time
more
too.
of or caught on fire. Or yeah. I'm gonna see how much density I can get by just putting in these fairly generic blocks. Because again, this is not meant to be an accurate, city or street level view of a city. I'm wanting to make an illustration from, back here. And so I need them to be upright and little boxy representations. And I feel like this is what I could probably do also is I can make a little cluster like this and make that be its own brush, and then I could just put one down on each city block. So there's probably ways around this problem. And then just go in and add. Okay, so I think in general what that leaves us with, our dog believes in me. Thank you. The big picture items that we're dealing with. The layout, we talked about that. For this city to function as a port city and a trade center, it needs to have roads that go.
It needs to have roads that lead
and
to
or
wider
rivers.
areas.
Yeah.
It needs to have rivers for cheaper transport of goods. It needs to have a dock.
Mhm.
Easy to reach docks. I'm worried about that piece of land that sticks out like a finger.
So this specifically is a jetty. This was built so that
Okay.
there's not as much water coming in here.
Okay,
or-
so that's to calm the water.
Yeah, it's not the amount of water; it's the sloshiness of said water. So yeah, that could come or go. But yeah, having
And
the boats having to navigate around this kind of area, unless, and that's the thing. Like it needs to be very deep to be a workable bay. And so I imagine there would be buoys all around. Buoys, boys, bowies,
buoys.
David Bowies, all around to help navigate around. You know where the deep and shallow parts are in here. But yeah, I might knock that down quite a bit. Yeah, and then docks, and then we discussed the population size. We're saying we want this to be a major capital, somewhere along the lines of a London. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of people. One thing we could do is guesstimate, you know, a clump like this little city block, how many people do you think live in that? So typically a family would live above their storefront.
Well, it sort of depends on wealth. If everything has to be built by hand,
Mm-hmm.
if the wages cannot be high enough to buy materials and the hands to do the building, you're going to be squeezing 2 or 3 families in a room.
Right.
So that could be anywhere from about 15 families to 40.
Okay. You mean 40 individual people?
Families,
40 families.
yes.
Okay. And a family is what in a typical? We're not quite medieval. We're past medieval. We're closer to Renaissance as far as technology goes. We have iron and steel
early industrial, however far you can get
without
without
electricity.
gunpowder, without internal combustion engines.
Yeah.
I suppose they could sort of be steampunk, except what people think steam can do aren't paying much attention to what it takes to make the steam.
Yeah.
I've seen,
Really big,
I've
really
seen
heavy.
books and movies and stuff where they had the steam powered rifles, it'd have to be bigger than a tank with this huge boiler.
It's just flavor.
Yeah.
Okay, so you think saying maybe 100 people in a little block like that?
Oh, easily.
Okay, so let's just say that's 100 people, and so that's a little spot about that. So we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we can say 1,000 people on a chunk about this big.
Mm-hmm.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 17, 18. So if there are 20,000 people in a chunk this big, another 20 here, we've got
Now they're
40,000.
spreading out a little bit,
Yeah.
and the density is decreasing.
Well, I mean, I still have to add all the little roads in here.
Well,
but,
yeah.
Okay, so even this is not up to multi 100,000s. We're still sub 100,000 at this scale.
Mm-hmm. I think you need more delta. You're going to have to push some of the mountains back.
Yeah, that's what I think I'll do. So I can just take something like, let's. just say, look at all this delightful delta area we have up here.
Looks weird.
Well, it looks weird now. I have to fix it.
See, that's the part of art that is hard for me to follow. That you
Do something ugly and nonsensical.
that you do something and then you undo it and you do again and you undo and you do and you undo, and that's what you have to do to finally end up with a finished. I just want to go from a lump of clay and just sort of push it around and have a face.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And you do all those steps to make it done right.
Mm-hmm. No, more right.
More right.
That's how you do your books, though.
It's true. You don't just start writing the first word and then the second word and then the third word, and by the time you get to the 500,000th word, you're just done.
Yeah, you're right. I'm still mucking around with it.
Okay, so if we've got a big chunk of area up here that we can fill with more population, then yeah, then we can definitely get to our 100,000 or more. So.
Where were you going to put the castle? You were going to put it over here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a castle up here called the Pile, and it's been added onto for countless generations. So it's just a big stack of.
So you're going to have some kind of road that goes up there.
Yeah, I was.
And some kind of services to the castle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's going to be rich people's manors in various high spots around here that'll have cut-back trails, switchback trails.
Well, so where do the hat makers' shops go?
Well,
Because
in the
the
town.
royalty want to buy fancy hats.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody's got to make those hats.
Yep. So I know in England there's all these manors that are just out there, 20 miles away from town or whatever, and when they go into town, it's okay. In a fortnight, we'll head into town and hit up the local haberdashery, and that's their kind of the pace of things is, oh, someone's going to be visiting us for a couple of weeks or months.
Right. And part of that is because of how difficult travel was.
Yeah. So
you're going to get the most you could out of it.
Right. So yeah, I don't see a problem with manors of the extremely wealthy being up and away. They've got their custom. They'll have their personal blacksmith and person who sews things that I can't think of what they're called.
Seamstress?
Well, that's
Tailor?
gendered, but okay, yeah, Taylor. Yeah. So anyway. Having the warring houses that are all competing for their shot at owning the Pile, having them up in interesting places, I think is a pretty cool feature, and I think it's realistic. And so the town base we've got. So this is something that. I don't quite understand about olden cities. Maybe it's the same as it is now. So we have places that we have cobblers still in existence, and there's well, let's go an easier example. We have dentists. Everyone needs dentists.
Yes.
And there is a certain density after which they can't continue to make new dentistry offices, because there's not enough population for that. So, for things like a hat maker, for a tanner, that sort of stuff.
Okay, yeah, I see you're making the point that you have to have a certain population density to support X number of tanners, but you can't go above X number of tanners unless they're exporting all their things they tan.
Yeah, well, not just that, but there are location-specific things, like tanneries need to be on a river. Okay. There's only so much river to put tanneries on. You're not going to have a tanner just in the middle of a field or whatever.
Okay.
So we're accounting for 100,000 people that need the services, and then any export that they do on top of that, how do you not end up with a giant row of tanneries, or maybe you do? And that's just something I don't have any experience with, so I don't know how that would work. Like, do I need to make several blocks worth of tanners along the river?
Well,
and,
if we're talking
and mills and all the other things that a river is necessary for.
Okay, if we're talking Middle Ages Europe, that's exactly what they had.
Okay.
And they had guilds.
Right.
We have guilds now.
Sometimes we have
The
wars.
union will only allow so many electricians, so many plumbers, and you have to apprentice.
Right.
Okay. They had that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so to group them actually was advantageous, even though they were in competition with each other. They also needed, as you pointed out, the same resources, and it's easier to get the same resources if it has to go to one place rather than 20 places.
Yeah. And Silent Willow points out that tanneries can also work next to sluices and man-made waterways. Yep. That is true. But they no matter where they are, they have the stench problem, in that they're literally soaking their pelts in urine and
Yes.
stuff like that. But yeah, so and again, that's something that I don't have experience with. I don't know how much of that, you have a government, and the government has zoning laws, even in ancient times, like Babylonia had zoning restrictions. So you would imagine that, no, you can't put your tannery right there, next to this apartment complex. Not that apartment complexes were a thing, but
well, actually they were, but for the poor, they get to live next to the tannery anyway.
Yeah,
because that's what can be afforded.
So
and that's not necessarily. Not every place has zoning laws. They have invisible hand of economics, as it were, sort of directing what things happen. I remember being surprised the first time we landed in Japan and took a drive from the airport to somewhere else, and to see a house, a field, a house, a small factory, a house, and it was all jumbled together, and I couldn't see what the zoning logic was there.
Yeah, there's certainly different standards for it.
And I'd see a rice paddy with a vending machine on the side. Also, sometimes buildings are situated according to, say, religious belief. A lot of the temples in Greece, you look at them, they just seem like they're just scattered randomly about. But each temple was situated to greet the sun or the moon or something that related to whatever god the temple was dedicated to. I like seeing the architecture of buildings in Hong Kong, where a lot of the skyscrapers have their orientation and their shape built on feng shui principles. And so you will see a huge skyscraper with a big hole in the middle.
That's to let
cheese go through.
Yeah, or the embodiment being the dragons, the luck drag, whatever they're butchering their culture, but yeah, something along those lines. It can be translated as literally they need to let the dragons fly back and forth between the ocean and the land or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
And the buildings might take into account prevailing winds, so that the side with fewer windows faces the prevailing winds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all of those kind of fun things that just don't occur to me when I'm making art or when we're writing a story or whatever. That's what's so neat about collaborating. That's why we're doing Tales from Talifar this very, very publicly and going through our process, because we love hearing from people like Silent Willow and Aletha and W. Bever, all those people.
Silent Willow says, new research seems to indicate that ancient temples were also built over earthquake faults in a means to appease the gods. I would assume not so much to appease the gods, I mean, it could be, but because the fumes led the practitioners to have hallucinatory states, such as at the Oracle of Delphi.
Yeah, I believe I read this somewhere reputable, but the reason that the Oracle at Delphi was a female was literally because the fumes would come up and through and then out the mouth was the idea. So she would straddle the fumes or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, whatever, go Greeks. They figured it out. That's how you hear from God. Straddle them fumes.
Silent Willow also says that zoning could be the first guy that came there built a house and the next person built a shop or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have people first settling a place, sometimes they end up influencing what goes on for 200 years by accident, as it were, because everything else that is built is in a response to what was built before.
Mm-hmm.
Silent Willow says, as a Greek, I'll take that as a compliment. Be careful what you say, Josh.
I'm just jealous that I don't live by any actual ruins. Ruins are my favorite thing, and I've never actually been to a real one. Yeah, well, someday I'll get to Europe.
Bever says, I know these ideas were also done in Egypt, as the Nile was a guide to them, which is true.
Yeah.
And that's why they had such incredible land surveyors, because they had stakes set up so that when the flooding came in and erased all the walls between the fields and erased the little paths and walkways and etc. Then when it went back down, they could look at the stakes in the mud and sort of realign everything, and the new paths could be built and the new fences go up, and everything would go back the way it was supposed to be. Oh, Silent Willow says the ruins of Epidavros were just around the corner from me. Nice. I hope I pronounced that halfway close. Epidavros or Epidaphras.
Shivel197, why I don't live on YouTube? Well, I don't have a cybernetic body yet.
Oh, I think he might mean, why don't you do live shows on YouTube
yeah.
like you do on Twitch? I believe it has something to do with the agreements that have to be signed and that are done between Twitch and YouTube. You're not allowed to put this on YouTube at all until it's been on Twitch for 24 hours. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, it's really obnoxious. It's one of those I used to stream to both YouTube and Twitch at the same time, and that was ultimate and awesome. But in order to be an affiliate on Twitch, which means I wouldn't be able to have subscribers on Twitch if I did the YouTube thing. And until recently, YouTube didn't have any similar mechanism where people could subscribe to you. And even now, it's very limited. I think you have to have over 50,000 subscribers to be able to do that. So yeah, it's just not viable. But I do post these on YouTube 24 hours later, so you can always watch them on my channel. If you don't know what my YouTube channel is, there's a link in the description underneath down there.
Because Josh doesn't ever.
This Patreon.
Yes, I am also on Patreon. Yeah, this is all. I'm thinking of technical ways to make this process faster. I'll figure that stuff out when we're not live streaming and come back and do more of this later. But yeah, so I think we've got a pretty good direction going. We've got our scale figured out. We've got kind of large landmass issues in a place that I'm happy with, and had a lot of fun talking about medieval / fantasy cities and how we're trying to approach it through a realistic lens of what is plausible. And thank you so much, guys, for coming out, and especially for those of you who gave us awesome feedback about history and physics and economy and all that good stuff.
Thank you for giving us information we didn't have.
Yeah, that's what I love, collaborating across the board. So that's what this is all about. Hope you guys check me out. I'm always streaming on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and always on Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific. So feel free to stop by anytime, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.